You know that feeling on a sweltering hot day? And then you walk inside and get hit with that blast of cool, crisp air from a humming box on the wall? It honestly feels like magic. But it's pure science. And the story behind it? Well, it's this fascinating tale of accidental genius that completely reshaped our world. So let's dive in.
So, how does it really work? How does this simple box take that oppressive, sticky summer air and just transform it into pure comfort? To answer that, we've got to understand the core principle at play.
All right, let's get into the magic of making cold. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is probably not what you think.
Here is the fundamental secret. An air conditioner is not a cold creator. It's actually a heat mover. Its entire job is to grab the heat from inside your room and literally just dump it outside. So it's less about making cold and way more about pulling off a really effective heat heist.
And the engine behind this entire process is based on some surprisingly simple physics. When you compress a gas, when you really squeeze its molecules together, it heats up a lot. But when you let that same gas rapidly expand, it gets incredibly cold. And that's it. Every single air conditioner and refrigerator is just using that one powerful rule over and over again in a loop.
So how does an AC unit use this principle to continuously steal the heat from your home? Let's follow the culprit and break down this great heat heist. The secret agent in this whole operation is a substance called a refrigerant. You might know it by the old brand name, Freon. This stuff is a special chemical mix, and it's engineered to do one thing really well. It boils at a super low temperature. That's the key, because it lets it easily absorb and then release huge amounts of heat as it flips between being a liquid and a gas.
The whole thing happens in 4 key steps. First, outside your house, the compressor squeezes that refrigerant gas, which makes it super hot. Then that hot gas flows through the outdoor coils, releasing its heat into the air. That's the hot air you feel blowing from the unit outside. As it cools, it condenses into a liquid. That high-pressure liquid then travels inside and is forced through a tiny valve, causing it to expand and become intensely cold. Finally, your fan blows your warm room air over these now frigid coils. The cold refrigerant absorbs all the heat, boils back into a gas, and the cycle starts all over again. It's a brilliant loop.
But an AC does more than just cool the air. As your warm, humid air passes over those cold indoor coils, water vapor condenses right out of it, just like on a cold glass of iced tea. That dehumidification is a huge part of why AC feels so good. It's what gets rid of that sticky, muggy feeling and can even help cut down on things like mold. So now that we know how it works, let's get to the even crazier story of why it was invented. And trust me, it had absolutely nothing to do with making people comfortable.
That's right. The first modern air conditioner was invented way back in 1902 by a young engineer named Willis Carrier. His client wasn't some rich homeowner sweating through the summer. It was a printing company in Brooklyn. The summer humidity was a total disaster for them. It was warping their paper, it was making their ink run. They just needed a way to control the moisture. The fact that the process also made the air cold, that was just a side effect, a happy accident.
Now, of course, humans have been trying to cool off for thousands of years, right? Ancient Egyptians were hanging wet reeds in windows to cool down. But Carrier's invention was the real game changer. It took decades to shrink those huge industrial units down into the first window AC in 1931. And by the 1970s, it had even changed our culture. Movie theaters were some of the first public places to get air conditioning, and they became a refuge from the summer heat, which gave rise to the entire idea of the summer blockbuster. And the invention's side effects didn't just stop with movies, not by a long shot. Air conditioning fundamentally reshaped the modern world in ways that Willis Carrier could never, ever have imagined. Just think about it. Entire regions like the American Sunbelt only became places where millions of people could live year-round because of AC. The modern glass skyscraper? Impossible without it. It'd just be a giant greenhouse. And so much of our world depends on it, from the data centers that power the internet to the hospitals and labs where life-saving medicines are developed. AC isn't just a luxury, it's a foundational technology of the 21st century. But all of this world-changing power, well, it comes with a serious cost, both to our wallets and, you guessed it, to the planet. A staggering 10%. 10% of all the electricity consumed on the entire planet goes to power air conditioning. And as more countries develop and the world gets hotter, that number is projected to skyrocket, putting an incredible strain on our power grids.
And it's not just the energy use. The refrigerants themselves have been a huge problem. Early versions were often toxic or even flammable. Then, in the 1930s, scientists came up with CFCs, this miracle chemical that was super safe and stable. The problem? Well, as we found out in the 70s, those CFCs were floating up into the stratosphere and literally destroying the ozone layer. This led to the Montreal Protocol, a landmark global agreement to phase them out, which is honestly one of environmentalism's greatest success stories.
So how do we solve the energy problem? Well, a huge leap forward is something called inverter technology. A traditional AC is kind of like a sprinter. It's either off or it's running at 100% speed. An inverter AC is more like a marathon runner. Its compressor can adjust its speed, running slowly and consistently just to maintain the temperature. This gives you way more stable cooling, and most importantly, it can use up to 40% less energy. That's a huge deal.
And that brings us to the ultimate question we're facing. The very technology that has enabled so much of our modern life is now contributing to the exact problem it's supposed to solve. So as the world warms, how can we stay cool without making it even warmer? Finding better, more efficient, and less harmful ways to cool our world is one of the biggest engineering challenges of our time. A challenge that, believe it or not, all started with some soggy paper in a Brooklyn printing press.